guys, and welcome back to another vlog. And it's nice and early, still about 45 minutes, 50 minutes before sunrise, and I'm out with Paul Watson. We've come down to Old Harry Rocks. I was here about maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I've been dying to get back since using the 16 to 35 for about the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's proving to be an absolute gem at this location. So I'm just going to get set up properly, dial in the composition, and then yeah, I'll talk you through what's going on and what I am planning on doing. But it's looking like no light this morning, although we've still got time. Okay, so first composition is set up. I found this little shrubby thing right on the edge of the cliff here, so I'm balanced right on the edge of the cliff, which is a little bit sketchy. So with the actual natural distortion of a 16 to 35, you can actually use it to your benefit. Sometimes it can be a downside and it can warp images, but especially in a portrait orientation, it can really help for composition. So right now I've got this little shrub, and it's only put up the size of my hand. It's really quite small. But when I get the 16 to 35 really close to it, it really warps it and emphasizes the size of this little shrubby plant thing and gives it some purpose and really helps the composition. And it's just a bit of foreground interest to actually draw your eyes straight into the scene. These white cliffs at Old Harry Rocks, that iconic view. So it's just a little bit different than the standard composition, which is nice to shoot. But I've shot it lots and lots of times, and this is where 16 to 35 or a wide angle can really come into its own. Here it is, this little shrub thing here. Like I said, only about the size of my hand, and on the 16 to 35 it really looks warped and it looks a lot bigger than it is. And that's just natural distortion from the lens, because on the edges it always is going to warp out a little bit. This is where you've got to be careful that you've got the right filters and the right filter set on your lens, because it can sometimes get a little bit of vignetting if you're wide at 16mm. So in the past I have had wide angle lenses. I used to have the 18mm 2.8, and that was a great wide angle lens. But having the 16 just gives it that little bit more distortion on the edges, and it just emphasizes everything a little bit more, and it looks really pleasing to your eye, because so our eyes are actually around about the focal length of between, I think, 35 and 50mm, or something around that sort of area. So anything to the extreme end of that looks really pleasing to your eye. So say 16mm is right at the very extreme end, and likewise 200mm is at the extreme end. And it's just a matter of walking around with your camera and trying to find a composition that kind of works, because you can't really see these wide angle shots with your eye unless you're accustomed to looking for them. So that's basically all I did this morning, looking for some foreground interest. I know that there's a nice scene here. I'm not going to have much light, we've just got moody clouds, so I'm just going to put a grad on the sky and pull a bit more out of the clouds. And my main focus is this tiny little shrub here. So to actually execute the shot and get the shot in the bag before the light gets too bright or it's not usable, because I've got something so close to my lens, this shrub is about maybe a foot away from my lens, it's inevitable that if I focus on the cliffs, it's going to be out of focus. The actual shrub is going to be out of focus, so it has to be focus stacked. That's the only downside. You learn how to focus stack in Photoshop, or you can get Photoshop to do it for you in some cases. So it's going to be a series of about 5 images. So I've got the grass just before the shrub I'm going to need to focus on first, right at the bottom of the frame. Then I'll actually focus on the shrub, then I'll focus on the grass just behind the shrub, and then there's 2 points of the cliff which I'm going to be focusing on as well. So it's going to be 5 images all blended together to make sure that it's focused right from the bottom all the way through to the end of the cliff over there. And settings wise for this are around about, what are we at now, about 6 seconds. It's still quite dark, although it looks deceivingly bright as always. Yeah, so about 6 seconds, f13 ISO 100, and a 2-stop hard grad on the sky. So we've got a nice definitive hard line for our horizon. So it's just about making sure focus is absolutely spot on. I'll pop the image up on screen for you guys shortly. Yeah, it's really coming into a world of its own, and it's a massive asset into my photography bag now. I absolutely love having it on my camera. Actually, it hasn't come off. It hasn't come off for a while. can really see there how the natural distortion of the lens really helps the photographer see new things and new compositions that you can't really see with your eye. And like I said, it's literally just picking the camera up, flipping it around, changing things and having a look to see if anything will really work, and then putting the tripod in the position and dialing it down and getting the shot. So it's exactly what I've done here. I'm not quite sure how this shot is going to come out. It might be a bit of a fail, but I'm going to execute it and take the shot anyway because I like the thought of it, I like the idea. Plus there's some colour up in the clouds now over there. There's no colour looking towards the sun, big old bank of cloud, but there is colour looking west and behind us, so I'm going to try and get the shot here. So exactly the same shot basically as before, some foreground interest, got these nice little spring flowers that are starting to blossom right on the edge of the cliff here. So I've got the camera right down low, literally on the deck, and this is going to be probably a few more shots. It's going to be more like 5 or 6 shots, maybe even 7, and a series of focusing on very close to the lens, as close as I can get, right down the bottom of the frame, and then gradually working my way up towards the edge of the cliff here, making sure all these flowers are in focus here, and then focusing on the first part I can see of the cliff. So just as it goes over the edge and we can start to see the cliff, focusing there because that's going to be our next point of focus, focusing probably on this main cliff and the very far pinnacle in the background. So it's probably going to be about 7 shots, I'd imagine. Slight bit of colour up here in the sky, and settings are exactly the same pretty much as last time, just changing the shutter speed. The waves look quite cool here, so I'm not going to freeze them and I'm not going to blur them out. They're just going to be about 1.3 seconds, so you can have a little bit of movement, but it's not going to be silky smooth. And that's it, just making sure focus has been sharp. So it's going to be 1.3 seconds, f13 ISO 50 with a 2-stop hard grad on the sky again. And yeah, like I said, just bringing a bit more colour through, and be really picky with your focus and make sure it's absolutely spot on, and then just let Photoshop do the work later on. So we're just wrapping up now. Had some spontaneous, so you can't quite see it, had some spontaneous light for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes or so, and me and Paul were taking some portraits of each other. As you can see, I popped them up on screen earlier on and they look absolutely lovely, really crisp and sharp. That's shot on the 70-200 actually, so it's not just a 16 to 35 vlog. But we're all wrapped up now, and it's been an absolutely lovely morning. Forecast wasn't for this, so it's great to see some magical light like that. And it's all about light and composition when it comes to photography, and we had both this morning. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you haven't subscribed, please consider clicking subscribe below. Give us a like, tell us what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.